Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark. I'm just dropping by really with a quick update as I've just finished one of the books I meant to be reading for Women's History Month this March, and that was the wonderful adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands. I spoke a bit about it last week in an update where I talked about the first half of the book from her birth in Jamaica through to her living in Panama and some of the racial prejudices she experienced. Just to recap, Mary Seacole was born back in 1805 and she passed away in 1881. She was a British Jamaican nurse, healer and businesswoman, and she's most famous for setting up the so-called British Hotel behind the lines in Crimea during the Crimean War, where Britain, France, Turkey took on Russia. She was a healer, I suppose we can say. You know, one of these West Indian style healers, or in the West African style, perhaps. More, I don't know if shaman or shamanism, that kind of thing, but more traditional healer. Yeah, I suppose that's probably the better thing. But she also became known as a pioneer of nursing, and of course she was a contemporary of Florence Nightingale. So when we last saw her, she was, or when I last spoke about her, she was in Panama, and then she decided to give up her work in Panama. And as Britain had declared war on Russia, she decided that she would find her way to the Crimea in order to help as best as she could. Upon her arrival in England, she doesn't find it as easy as she maybe thought she would to get out there. And I think she shows a little bit of her naivety. I mean, throughout the book, she's always complaining about the racism shown towards her by the Americans, and it seems all the while that British people tend to be that much better. But, she comes across this in London, that it isn't actually the case. And I'll read you a little quotation from the book. She says, "I was so conscious of the unselfishness of the motives which induced me to leave England, so certain of the service I could render among the sick soldiery, and yet I found it so difficult to convince others of these facts. Doubts and suspicions arose in my heart for the first and last time, thank heaven. Was it possible that American prejudices against colour had some root here? Did these ladies shrink from accepting my aid because my blood flowed beneath a somewhat duskier skin than theirs? Tears streamed down my foolish cheeks as I stood in the fast-thinning streets, tears of grief that any should doubt my motives, that heaven should deny me the opportunity that I sought." I think this shows a bit of her naivety. I mean, I'm not saying, of course, all British people were racist, just like probably not all Americans at the time were racist either. But I think for her to assume that perhaps the British were somehow better in this regard maybe was a little bit naive, and I think I can understand why she probably doesn't go on about it a bit more, because at the time she's writing this autobiography, she's kind of in need of cash, so she probably doesn't want to offend her audience too much, but I'm pretty sure the situation was probably more difficult than she lets on. Her adventures in Crimea are really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of tragic episodes, of course, with the death of young men. There are also quite funny episodes as well, one of which I shall read to you. And this involves somebody stealing a pig that she had acquired in order to butcher at some point for her British hotel. I should explain, I suppose, that the British Hotel is a kind of hotel, rest and relaxation area, wellness centre, if you like, somewhere where the soldiers can relax, get some good food, something different from normal military food, as well as convalesce from their injuries. So it's not a hospital per se, it's more like a kind of convalescence home, or maybe some kind of weekend retreat, or somewhere where soldiers can go and get away from the hard life at the front for a little bit. Anyway, someone tried to steal this pig that she was going to butcher and then feed various people. Up they rode, calling out, "Mother Seacole, old lady, quick, the pig's gone." I rushed out, injured woman that I was, and saw it all at a glance, but that my straw, wide awake, was in the way. I could have torn my hair in my vexation. I rushed to the sty, found the nest warm, and with prompt decision prepared for speedy pursuit. Back I came to the horsemen, calling out, "Off with you, my sons! They can't have got very far away yet. Do your best to save my bacon." Well, I thought that's quite nice. And if you're interested, they did indeed retrieve the pig and bring it back. It's funny, I mean, she does talk, of course, it is an autobiography, so she does talk about herself a lot. She says she's reluctant to sing her own praises, but she does so quite a bit. And then to make it look a bit better, she quotes others who do so, including articles from newspapers as well as well-known figures at the time, which I suppose is understandable. I mean, she founded a business with a trader in the Crimea called the Seacole and Day Company, or Day and Seacole Company. Can't remember the order. And the war's end actually left her pretty poorly off, because I guess she had done, invested so much of her own money as well into helping others, not perhaps such an astute businesswoman, and maybe gave away more things than she should have done. But she was certainly very well thought of, extremely well thought of at the time. There's a little poem made about her in Punch, and it says, "No store she set by the epaulette, be it worsted or gold lace. For Casey B. or plain Private Smith, she had still one pleasant face. And not alone was her kindness shown to the hale and hungry lot, who drank her grog and ate her prog, and paid their honest shot." And it goes on. I won't read it all because, I don't want to spoil everything, but it's nice. And when she returns to the UK after the Crimea, as I said, she falls on hard times, and it's very interesting to see that how well thought of she was at the time, because she had a lot of benefactors and people who wanted to help her, including one of the royal princes, and also the Duke of Wellington and the Duke of Newcastle, among some, as well as various other gentlemen and generals who were quick to help her in her financial need. And in fact, this committee was formed with these people as members to look after her welfare, and they put on a benefit for her that was attended by 80,000 people. So that's quite impressive for the day, I would say. So yeah, the book really much ends with her return to Britain after the Crimea War. I read up on her just through Wikipedia and whatever to find out what she did after she spent a bit of time back in Jamaica and then came back in England. She didn't die penniless. She left, I think, around at the time £2,500, which was quite a bit of money, and she was able to leave things to others. She was voted the greatest Black Briton of all time, which she deserves. However, her nursing legacy has caused a bit of controversy, probably at the expense, some claim, of Florence Nightingale. For example, a statue of Mary Seacole was put outside St Thomas's Hospital in London, and people said it wasn't right because she didn't really have any connection to the hospital, whereas Florence Nightingale did. And also, in the book, Seacole says she met Florence Nightingale on many occasions, so she only records the first time she met her. And it seems that the two probably... Florence Nightingale didn't have a very high opinion of her, and actually cast dispersions on the house or the hotel that she kept, saying it was a place of drunkenness and frivolity and this kind of stuff. But, maybe, I don't know, maybe it isn't true, of course, who knows. And yeah, it was very interesting. I'm really glad I read it. I mean, it did have its faults. It's hard to tell how much, is her and how much is the editor. But it's a very interesting, I guess again, kind of social document, as it is an autobiography, and it's written by a woman who did a remarkable thing. I mean, being a woman of colour who left Jamaica and travelled to different countries in the world, set up her own kind of convalescence home, and looked after all sorts of people. And she was certainly very well thought of by all those she came into contact with, as we saw by the fact that 80,000 people attended a benefit for her to help raise money for her when she had fallen on hard times. After her death, she became forgotten for a bit until she was there was a memorial for her back in 1981 on the centenary of her death, and now she does appear on the British national curriculum for history as a subject and person to be learned about. So I think that's very justified. Certainly she shouldn't be forgotten. So the wonderful adventures of Mrs. Seacole in many lands. Nice autobiography for Women's History Month, and I think if you have any interest in remarkable woman, reading her story in her words, and the kind of, I can't really say early days of nursing. I think it's a bit different. It's not quite nursing in the way of Florence Nightingale, but certainly for the things that she did for the morale of troops and things, it's definitely worth looking into and just seeing a different perspective of the Crimean War. Give it a go. Thank you very much, and I will be back, I hope, tomorrow, and I hope I would have finished another book. I'm lagging a bit behind, but I do hope to get there. I've got another 2 that I'm halfway through, and perhaps I'll finish later today. Thanks again, BookTube. You have a fantastic rest of your day. Take care, stay healthy, see you soon. All the best. Bye-bye.